I'd like to resume the Board of Supervisors meeting. The first item of order is to go out of closed meeting. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Chair Perez?
Aye.
6 ayes.
The second item is, I'm having trouble tonight with my throat, is certification. Whereas the Board of Supervisors of Montgomery County has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to the affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and whereas Section 2.2-3711 of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the Board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of Montgomery County, Virginia, hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification resolution applies, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the Board. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Chair Perez?
Aye.
6 ayes.
The next item on the agenda is our invocation. And at this time, we'll ask everybody to please stand and think about the things that are before us tonight. And following our invocation, we'll ask Mr. Meadows to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, the next item is our public hearing. The following public hearing was advertised pursuant to law in the Bergs section of the Roanoke Times on August 30th and September 6th of 2012. And that's a special use permit for James and Laura Lee Tannehill. Miss Jenkins, good evening.
Thank you. Excuse me a second here, someone, but
You got short.
hello? Okay. Thank you. This evening, we bring to you a little bit of a familiar matter. This application, you've seen it before. So, we should just go over these few maps here. Right here is the location of the site. It's on the north side of I-81, right there at Tyler Road, exit 109. And the area here in this little square represents the Tannehill's property. It's about an acre in size. If you'll notice that it does lie exactly adjacent to I-81, which runs this direction. And it's part of a general business district depicted in the orange here. And this is Route 177, or the Tyler Road area. And 177 corridor is pretty particular to us in the zoning ordinance, because we have a special overlay district for that development along that road. Across the interstate, we have two residential districts here in the brown and the yellow, and with some general business zoning across the interstate for the hospital properties and some other facilities there we've worked real hard on in 2009. Okay, so this is an aerial photograph of the Tannehill site. And again, this is the building that has been there for a number of years as a heavy equipment repair. And the proposed addition, and I just lost my mouse. Here we go. The proposed addition is going on to this side. Mr. Sale, David Sale with South Gate Properties owns this entire parcel here, and this is his private road that comes through and connects in two places to Tyler Road. And so it is a paved road with water and sewer available here on site. Then this is a little bit of an enlarged view. The proposed addition is on this area here. With their existing entrance is paved. A portion of the parking lot is paved due to a previous tenant. So there's some paving here for the customers, and then the majority of the property is gravel after that. So last year, the applicants wanted to make an addition to their building, and because of some changes to the zoning ordinance in 1999, the facility was now an existing non-conforming use. And the only way to allow an expansion of that was to ask them to come in and get a special use permit approved by the board to bring it into conformity so we could allow the expansion. So in May of 2011, the board did approve the special use permit to allow the truck, trailer, and heavy equipment sales and service on the site with 7 conditions. So in October of 2011, then a site plan was approved for the construction of the addition of the garage. And I required the inclusion of a 20-foot by 57-foot paved driveway that's shown on your packet there on sheet S2 to connect that existing paved entrance to that existing paved little parking area up there near the original garage. And we felt that this was the minimum paving required in an attempt to meet that condition number 2 of the special use permit. And you should have a copy of those conditions as well in your packet. So the owners argued a little bit with the staff that the commission and the board had knowledge through that special use permit application that they had no intentions to pave anything further on that site, because their feeling was that the movement of heavy trucks and equipment on that property would just destroy the paving. So staff had concerns as well about allowing the gravel surface there because of the dust and the potential future development of that Route 177 corridor. It has a higher level of development standards than other areas of the county that have that general business zoning as well. So we had 3 options available to the owners: either redesign or relocate the entrance or the parking on site, seek an amendment to that special use permit requesting the removal of condition number 2, or appeal the zoning administrator's decision to enforce that condition. So in November, they did file an application to appeal the decision to the Board of Zoning Appeals. In December, the BZA heard the appeal and tabled the action to allow for some clarification from the board. Well, to date, we still have no decision on that case from the BZA. So we discussed the matter with the county attorney, and he agreed that the only way to require less paving was to remove that condition number 2 from the special use permit conditions. So if it's removed, then section 1044.1 allows us to use a phrase that says existing use and parking areas shall be deemed to be exempt from the said regulations. And it's the part here underlined that would give them some relief not to have to pave that 20 by 57 foot section. All right, so that would be an area from here and about into this area here, because the other is paved in this area. This site plan shows the addition of the building. It's about doubled in size the garage capacity of the property. We had discussed with them an opportunity maybe that they could move their entrance to this area of the lot and come in along this area and park over here, or maybe even come over here and use this for your parking and use an area here for the offloading of heavy equipment and the turning of larger vehicles. So here again, this shows better the pavement that would be required. I had this put into the site plan before we approved it. So now we have the garage addition complete. They need a CO, a certificate of occupancy, to allow the use of it. And they either have to install that driveway, paved driveway, or get your approval to remove that condition. They preferred not to pave because they just feel like that it would be an ongoing battle to frequently repave that thing. So the adjacent property owners were notified. I spoke with Melissa Skelton with the City of Bradford, as required by our code, to have a joint review for all the actions as far as rezonings and special use permits and site plans in this 177 corridor. She had no problem with what is being proposed here. We had no other public comment other than the owners in the Planning Commission meeting as well. So the Planning Commission held their hearing on the 12th, and they have recommended approval of the request to remove the condition by a vote of 7-1. And so that would leave 6 other conditions just as they were originally written, intact. And we would remove number 2 that says the existing parking lot shall be subsurfaced to provide a durable and dustless surface per section 1044-2E of the county code prior to the issuance of a CO. So everything else would stay the same, and they, I think, are pretty much in compliance with the other conditions, and this is what we're waiting on here. So if you have any questions for me, I'll attempt to answer those, and the applicants are here to answer any questions you might have as well.
Any questions, Ms. Jenkins?
Yeah, I do. And Justin, something that you had said there about it tearing up the pavement if they put it down. And I believe you also stated that Mr. Sale had already put in a paved road around
Yes, sir.
to it.
Yes, sir.
And my question is this: if it's going to tear up that road, won't it tear up Mr. Sale's road? And
Well, what happens
other
is...
question, let me
Okay.
follow that. The other question is, if it doesn't hurt his road at the present time, if there's ever a low spot there where the gravel meets that pavement, it will tear it up if you go to turn in and out of there, without question. I fool with a lot of pavement, and pavement tears up worst on the edges.
Yes, sir.
And if they're turning in and out of there, unless that has got some kind of an entrance of pavement, then it's going to tear up. Now, if they've got 10-foot or so entrance going into it, they may be okay to where they can just come on it on a straight line. But that would be my question: is are we going to help somebody and then hurt somebody else?
Okay, that's a fair question. As you said, that interior street, that private street, was built by Mr. Sale, and it is paved. The Tannehill site also has this paved entrance right here. It is paved.
Okay.
Then there's a little pavement up in this area where the customers park. So it's only a section from here to about in here. It's about 57 feet that they would need to connect the pavement. Now, we had lots of discussions at the Planning Commission level. You know, you could go to heavy-duty concrete and that would take care of it, those kind of things, but they were concerned that when they offload tracked equipment that's being hauled in for repair, they have a lot of Terman lumber, tractor-trailer trucks that need repair while they're still loaded with logs and that sort of thing. They're afraid that heavy weight and the twisting and turning there on site would just break up any paving that they would put here. Now, the ordinance does allow asphalt, tar and gravel, or prime and double seals, what the regular name is for that, in this area, or asphalt. But your asphalt's a little stronger, and it would have to be ordered up with a pretty heavy-duty mix to take care of that. But it could be done. They just prefer not to have to do it. But in order to get down to that one paragraph I mentioned in the parking section that would allow them to be exempt, we have to remove that condition that said the parking lot would be paved.
If they've got that coming into it, I don't have a real problem with it.
I think it would be okay if that's what you're concerned about, because I think Mr. Sell would be protected there.
Yeah, it looks like I haven't been up there, so that looks like he's probably got 50 foot or so. Maybe not that much.
It's pretty close.
Any other questions or comments, Mr. Brown?
Now, you had contacted the city of Radford,
Yes, sir, I did.
and did their zoning administrator come out or so forth?
She talked with me. I sent her a package, and she talked with me, and she said she didn't have any concerns one way or the other, that she didn't feel like that would really give the city any problems if we happen to make this change. I'm just required to contact them. That's in an agreement we have with them for any development along this corridor, that they will have a joint review.
And there was no public comment in opposition of this?
Correct. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? Any statements from Mr. and Mrs. Tannehill?
If you need anything clarified as far as dust.
Can you come up to the mic, please?
Thank you. I'm Lori Tannehill. My husband and I own the property. The speed that vehicles would be going when they come through this parking lot, dust is not going to be an issue, and that seems to have been the primary reason for people wanting the paving. This has been in continuous use as a heavy equipment and truck garage since the late 80s. The areas adjacent to it, a lot of them are not paved in the neighboring buildings. The truck stop, large area of their parking lot is not paved. A small area of it is. I know you were concerned about the breaking up of the pavement. The breaking up, we only have 1 acre. When you take the sides of it and you park vehicles, they're waiting for parts or waiting for somebody to pick them up. And then you've got the center, the new area of the garage where it is. When you offload something or you get somebody that jacks in, they have to pivot. And every small business, you'll notice they say no heavy trucks, no heavy trucks. You get 90-degree, 100-degree weather, and you get somebody in there, or the track, when we have loaders or track hose or something, it's going to tear it up.
Yeah, and I said I agree with that.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Thank you, Ms. Tannehill. Is there anybody in the public who would like to speak to this public hearing? If so, please step forward and state your name and address, and you have 5 minutes. Seeing no one, we'll close this public hearing. The next public hearing is an ordinance on the Agricultural and Forestal District. Mr. Sandy, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Get back to the... We actually have 3 districts up for renewal in our Ag and Forest districts. It's districts 3, 4, and 5. AFD District 3, I'll discuss first, is out in the Little River area. It's called Little River. It's kind of out in the Indian Valley, Piney Woods Road area, out where Floyd and Pulaski and Montgomery kind of come together, kind of that corner of the county. It was originally established in 1980 and then last renewed 8 years ago in 2004. Currently, the district has 13 property owners and about 1,280 acres. We've had 2 property owners that have proposed additions of about 71 acres, and 1 has proposed a withdrawal, and that was about a 3-acre tract, so just a small tract. There is reference here, section out of the state code 15.24305, which talks about that the core of the district of an AFD has to be at least 200 acres, and then properties that are within 1 mile are allowed to be part of that district. And if there's properties outside of 1 mile, they have to be found to be significant to be added. And I'm going to talk about that with each district because we made a few changes to the district at the Ag and Forest District Advisory Committee. We did review those, and we looked at the boundaries, particularly those that were originally in Ag and Forest District number 5, which is in the Reiner area. And we decided to shift some of those parcels from AFD 5 into AFD 4 and AFD 3. And really that was just because of the proximity to the core of those districts and just to try to bring us more in compliance with state code. It doesn't change anything for the people that are in these districts, and nobody had any opposition to those changes. So we're proposing 365 acres from AFD 5 will move to AFD 3, and if you can see these areas here, they have the little symbol on them. They were in AFD 5, which is kind of way over here, and the committee just felt like it made more sense to group it with AFD 3, which is this area. There's another piece out here on the Little River, which is all of these properties are outside of the 1 mile requirement. So the committee recommended that those be added to AFD 3 and found that they were significant enough to maintain the district and stay in the district. So it addressed some of the properties that are outside of that by doing that. There still was some outliers, but they have recommended that those be included. So the AFD Advisory Committee recommended the approval of the 8-year renewal for AFD 3 with those properties that have that little symbol on them, which we're calling outliers, just because they're outside of that 1 mile. So the new proposal of the district would be 37 acres and a total of 1,716 acres. And you have a list of the property owners that are involved in that are in your packet. AFD 4 is the next district, and this is a district right out by Round Meadow Golf Course, right on the edge of the town of Christiansburg, Silver Lake Road area. Again, this district started in 1980 and was renewed 8 years ago. Right now, it has 8 property owners in it. It's primarily the Childress Farm in this area, and it's about 870 acres right now. And we're proposing to transfer about 634 acres from AFD 5 to AFD 4. So we're basically doubling the size of 4, pulling those from 5, because you'll see on the map they're a whole lot closer to AFD 4 than they are to 5. So here's the core outlined in blue. This is Round Meadow Golf Course right here, so it's pretty much the land right around that. These are our properties down along Route 11, and Plum Creek Road is right here. We have a couple of properties along Mud Pike as well. Basically, the advisory committee said everything that was on the north side of Mud Pike, let's just put it with AFD 4. So that's those changes. Those districts were originally part of, or those properties were originally part of AFD 5, which is out in Reiner. So they've recommended approval of those. And then AFD 5 is the large district that's about 7,600 acres out in Reiner. Really, the kind of the Union Valley Road area is the core of that district. Again, this district was established in 1981 and then renewed 8 years ago. 7 property owners are proposing additions, and about 1,000 acres being added. And then 10 property owners are proposing withdrawals for another 1,000 acres. So it's pretty much a wash there, with 1,000 coming in and 1,000 going out. And then we're looking to transfer about 1,000 acres out to District 3 and District 4, which I just talked about. And you can see the core of this district has kind of eroded a little bit, if you will. It's kind of got a weird configuration to it, just because properties over time have come out and some of the land has been developed. But there's still a large number of properties that are in the AFD, and the ones with the little symbols on them again are those that are outside of the 1 mile buffer of the core, that the AFD committee and the Planning Commission are recommending that the board keep those in and keep them part of AFD number 5. So again, they recommended approval of this district for renewal for another 8-year period, and with the total of AFD 5 being 87 parcels and about 6,600 acres, And I didn't list all the property owners. You have a list of those for each district that are part of that. The Planning Commission held their public hearing on the 12th, and they had no public comment on any of these. We've run 2 legal notices about the renewal, and we held public hearing at the Planning Commission. And tonight we'll be holding another public hearing. So I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions of the board?
I don't think any question. My question is this. Well, I see when I look at these things, they got anywhere from 1 to however many acres, but my question has to do with the ones that have 1, 2, up to 10, 12 acres. What benefit are they to the county if they go in AFD?
Well, what we found a lot of those are is pieces of the original farm that have been cut off for children or cut off for various reasons through the years. And a lot of those still have some sort of farming activity going on with it. And the other part of it is if by keeping those in, we kind of keep the core together. If we start pulling those out, then the core starts to look like the picture I showed you in Reiner, where you start having all these jigsaw shapes. So it kind of helps keep it together. And this program doesn't make you eligible for land use taxation program. So there is no minimum size requirement to be in the district. The main reason we want to see them stay in is to keep those cores together.
If they have a house on them, if they're a 2-acre lot that's got a house on it, does it still qualify as an AFD?
It still qualifies because there's not a minimum. Now, what we've said is it's part of the farming operation. So like if it's the house for the farmer, we'll keep it in just because it's part of the overall farm. So like I said, some of them have cut it off for brothers, sisters, children. They still use it as their home and they run the farm from there, and they might have a barn in the back storing some equipment and that kind of stuff. So we decided that if it's part of the operating farm, that we would allow it to stay in.
Okay, so there's no requirement as far as number of acres, and there's no requirement.
Not for an individual parcel. There's not a. There is in the land use taxation program, and a lot of people get those confused. In land use taxation, you have to have at least 5 acres, and if you have a house on it, then they usually require 6 acres, 5 acres plus 1 acre for a house site. But AFD, no, there's not a minimum size requirement.
I just was confused myself and needed to know. Thank you.
Yeah, that happens a lot. It's a lot of people confuse the 2 programs. So, but AFD is a separate program from the land use taxation program. People still have to apply separately for the land use taxation.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Mr. Sandy. The next item on the agenda is public address. And
Speakers, I don't know if we have to. Public hearing.
we have 2 people signed up for public address.
Speakers for that one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
See if there was anybody.
Is there anybody, does anybody want to speak to the last public hearing? If so, you got 5 minutes. Seeing no one, we'll close this public hearing.
You had one got up there.
Did you want to speak to the public hearing or public address? No, public address.
Public
Okay.
address.
All right, now we go on to public address.
Now.
And we have 2 people signed up. And as always, you have, please state your name and address, and you have 5 minutes. And the first person is Andrea Sharp Robinson.
Yes, hi, good evening. I'm Andrea Sharp Robinson. My address is 5261 Prices Brook Road, Blacksburg, Virginia. And I'm here tonight for a couple reasons. I have been a teacher, and part of lesson plans in teaching is always to have an induction, have some reason to get your students' attention.
Could you speak a little closer to the mic, please?
Okay. And my purpose for getting your attention tonight is for two reasons. I think we have two reasons to celebrate. And so this is my celebration instead of party hats for everybody. This is a moment to celebrate. Later on this evening, I understand you'll be transferring the school board will be transferring the property, the old Prices Fork Elementary School, to the Board of Supervisors, which is something that I have waited for a long time. I'm the president of the Northwest Montgomery Village Center Foundation, and I have met with several of you and talked with you, and we've been here in the past. But tonight is the night that we need to begin discussions. So the first reason was the transfer of property to celebrate, and the second reason to celebrate, like I said, is to open lines of communication between our foundation and the county. I believe last week there was some concern about the old Prices Fork Elementary School becoming part of the historic registered places for the state of Virginia. I applied for that designation for my home, and the Knights who live next door to me applied for their home. In the process of applying for our home, the areas that were already designated historical, it would make a large rectangle, and that included the school. Mr. Johnson is on one side, the school, my home, and then the Knights' home. And across the street was already designated historical. All right, when you do that, you go to the state of Virginia because your property is over 50 years old. So I applied. Again, by doing that, the state said, they come out, they look at the property, they walk the grounds, and they say, yes, your property qualifies, as well as the old Prices Fork Elementary School. We said, great, file it, please. With the filing, letters are sent to all property owners included in that area. So somebody was sent the letter that represented it for the school as well. They had a public meeting August 14th. They posted the meeting, and nobody showed up to complain or to offer an objection to including it in the historical process. When you do that, it does not make it so you can't tear down the building. The reason that I applied for that for the school was for the benefit of whomever owned the property. Tonight, you guys are going to own the property. So if you sell it to somebody tomorrow, if this were approved, they would have the opportunity to have a tax credit. It does not prevent you from tearing it down. It does not mean that you can't do anything you want to the property. All it did was provide a potential tax credit to the owners of the property. It says here, the listing in the National and State Registers is honorary. It recognizes historic property's importance to its community, the state, and/or the nation, as well as encouraging good stewardship of the historic property. National and state register listings do not place restrictions on private property owners. Owners have no obligation to open their properties to the public, to restore them, or even to maintain them if they choose not to do so. Federal agencies whose projects affect a listed property, if you were going to do something as a federal agency, then you would let the Department of Historic Resources know that you were going to do something. And if you wanted the tax credit, then you would apply for that tax credit. So I'm here because I felt, after watching the last Board of Supervisors meeting, that you were concerned that I was trying, or we were trying to do something that wouldn't benefit all the people in Northwest Montgomery County, or all the citizens of Montgomery County for that reason. And that was the reason for stopping it. I believe the application has been pulled. I'm not sure why. I'm hoping that maybe one of y'all can give me an answer to that. And I hope you would consider withdrawing your objection if you do have an objection, or maybe that I could be here to answer the question tonight for you. Does anybody have any questions for me about that? No? Okay. Well, I have a piece of information I'll pass and give to you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. And the next speaker we have listed is Bennett Teets.
Thanks. My name is Bennett Teets, and I live at 3014 Lancaster Drive, Blacksburg, Virginia. and if I can work your computer here for a second, I have a video that I'd like to show you relevant to the old Prices Works Elementary School. That must not be it. Or maybe it is.
The old Prices Works Elementary School is far more than just a vacant building sitting alongside Prices Works Road. For over 5 generations of children, it served the area as the crucible,
The
a
lights.
sense of belonging, and became the physical embodiment of what is meant by community to the citizens of Northwest
Lights. Thank you.
This area has been the epicenter for the citizens of Northwest Montgomery County since the mid-1700s, and as far back as the early 19th century, a Prices Works School has been the place where we have found our footing, made lifelong friends, and discovered the value of learning. It is the repository of our memories and a symbol of Northwest Montgomery County's identity and our own identities.
To preserve our heritage and to promote the culture and spirit of our community, the citizens of the 8 villages, Prices Fork, Longshot, McCoy, Merrimack, Wake Forest, Norris Run, Tom's Creek, and Sunnyside, have formed a nonprofit tax-exempt foundation to purchase the old Prices Fork School and grounds and to transform them into a village center. The vision is a multi-use facility that's planned to include playgrounds for children and recreational fields for adults, space for community activities, a coffee cafe, a daycare center, doctor's office, elderly health care, and an e-learning library, a technology genealogy center, a craft incubator business, and a gallery to display artifacts and crafts reminiscent and indicative of the area's rich history. Imagine the old school once again serving as the center for strengthening our community and developing our next generation.
The Northwest Montgomery Village Center Foundation has a plan to build on our past in order to survive and grow in the face of opportunistic development and overexpansion. It's a vision that respects and adheres to the county's 2005 comprehensive plan, designating the building's future as a community center when no longer in use as a school.
This vision is only possible with your support, your voice, your time, your energy, your suggestions, your talents, and yes, your financial assistance. Find out how you can help at our website at www.nmvcf.org.
This is a time and place to join together as an engaged community to respect and honor our past while creating a better future through our actions today. By leveraging the power of community, we will succeed.
I'd like you to consider this as the beginning of our dialogue and be engaged with us on how we can move this project forward to the success of all of us and the success of the Northwest Montgomery County citizens. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else in the audience who would like to address the board for public address? Jack?
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Jack Selkovitz. I live on High Rock Hill Road down in Pilot, Virginia. And I am a taxpayer in this county. And every time you take a parcel off of the tax rolls, that means all the taxpayers have to absorb those extra costs, and we have to pay for every item, every parcel that is not on the tax rolls. Therefore, I don't believe that any additional property should be removed from the tax rolls unless it's a dire emergency. One of the reasons brought forth when we went to make the new schools was that all the old schools and old school properties would be sold and placed back in the tax rolls to benefit the rest of the taxpayers. So that's the first part of my speech tonight. The second part is to remind Mr. Meadows, Carol, and the rest of the staff that since we are between budget times of the year, I will reiterate my prior requests to educate the Board of Education's, your counterparts, to create a viable budget, an operating budget versus a capital budget. And since you're having a joint meeting this Thursday, perhaps you could start to bring those thoughts to fruition prior to them submitting their next annual budget. And I'm going to keep on hammering that. Hopefully I won't have to bother you for 5 minutes every 2 weeks. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Jack. Is there anybody else in the audience who'd like to speak at this public address? Seeing no one, we'll close the public address. And the next item is addendums, and I don't have any. We don't have any. The next item is consent agenda. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Roll call, please.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Chair Palutis?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Okay, the next item is to go into work session. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Palutis?
Aye.
6 ayes.
And the first person on our work session is Dan Brew
Yes.
for the Roanoke MPO.
I'm not from the Roanoke MPO, let's get that. I have been, at the direction of the board, I have attended Roanoke MPO meetings in discussing the addition of a portion of Montgomery County to the Roanoke MPO. The process that they're following is very similar to what our MPO just completed with the addition of the city of Radford and Pulaski County to now be the New River Valley MPO. The original requirement for the addition came as a result of the census and the connection of census blocks from Roanoke County into Montgomery County. Tab E that you have is a map, and the area in red is the minimum area. That's the census designated area that has to be included in the Roanoke MPO. And once again, similar to the process we used here with the addition of Radford and Pulaski, is you look at the areas that have the potential to develop either residentially, industrially, or commercially in the next 20 years, and then you come up with the study area to be added to the MPO. Roanoke came up with a suggestion for what area should be added, and I reviewed that with Steve. I'll throw Steve's name, Steve Sandy. The area that they suggested closely resembled the village plan, Elliston Lafayette village plan, with the exception of a couple areas and a couple parts of areas, and the area out around exit 128. And the main difference in the other areas between the village plan and what you see here and what was originally proposed by Roanoke MPO is that the village plan did look at specific use of portions of parcels and not entire parcels. When you're adding areas to the MPO, it has to be entire census blocks. You can't do part of a census block. And so the area that's shown on this map that you have is less because some of the areas, the census blocks are huge. Like the one that includes the Lancer truck stop goes all the way to the top of the mountain, and there's absolutely no development going to occur on the vast majority of that tract. So it was scaled back to match census tracts. The area in green is the area that we're talking about as potential additions other than what is required. I wanted to bring this to you and give you some time to look at it, to provide any comments you might have. It will be finalized, I guess, at the November meeting of the Roanoke MPO. They certainly have been good to work with. They will entertain any comments we have, but as in the case of us adding Radford and Pulaski, the final decision will be made by the Roanoke MPO. So if you have any questions or comments, don't have to have them tonight, but and I'll be more than happy to come back to another meeting once you've had a chance to think about it. But we do need to, if we're going to provide any comments, we need to do it sometime in before November 1st. I'll answer any questions you have right now if you have any.
Any questions, Mr. Brew? I guess we're okay for now.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Dan.
Thanks.
And the next is
County capital needs.
County capital needs and Mr. Meadows. I figure out how to get this back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had some discussion last meeting about the upcoming joint meeting with the school board, and one of the topics of discussion for that meeting was going to be capital and how we address capital needs for the future. And one of our new board members mentioned to me, and we had some conversation as a staff, that we really wanted to make sure you guys were familiar with some of the unmet needs that the county has developed over the last couple of years. And and I give credit to Carol for this. Carol pulled this together with the help of Mark Magruder and our staff. Every year we send out information to our department heads and to our agency heads, asking them to provide us with a list of their capital needs for the next 5 years. And honestly, over the last couple of years, with the primary focus being on the courthouse and the massive amount of school construction we've done, when it's come to budget time, we really haven't had any discussion of the other capital needs that are out there that the county's addressing or needs to address. And what you have before you is basically just a rough summary of the unfunded capital needs as we reviewed the information for the next 10 fiscal years that we'll probably be needing to address. And it's divided into two sections. The top 2/3 reflect the county project's estimated needs. And as you can see, that number totals between 63 and 73 million. And again, that is county needs excluding schools. Those are for things such as public safety needs for between 15 and 17 million. That includes not only fire and rescue facilities and equipment, a fire and rescue training center, which has been talked about for a number of years, and also radio communications infrastructure and equipment for our volunteers and sheriff's department. Another category that we came up with was county facilities. Over the next 10 years, looking at 19 to 21 million in that area. That includes an animal shelter and adoption center, which we've talked about in the last budget somewhat. Also needs for our libraries, upgrading and maintaining our facilities with the libraries, and also contemplating the need for a public works facility at some point in the next 10 years, especially if the state does some things they've talked about. Another area that we've talked about is we've developed our master plan and talked about our strategic vision as Parks and Recreation. The estimated needs in that area for the next 10 years are $7 to $8 million, $7 to $8 million. That is to continue to maintain and refurbish our existing parks and trails. We've also talked about the development of some specialty parks around the county. Also transportation needs. The estimated cost range for those for the next 10 years are 10 to 12 million. That includes village transportation links in the various communities that we've talked about as part of the village plans that were developed. And also, if the board wants to continue to support revenue sharing funds for matching state operations. Economic development estimates range from 7 to 8 million. That includes completing grading of sites in Falling Branch Industrial Park, but moreover, it includes identifying land for new industrial parks. We, as you're well aware, are running out of space at Falling Branch, and within the next 10 fiscal years, we'll probably be needing to identify a place for a new park. And then other projects that we discussed it could be between 4 and 6 million, and that includes voting machines, floodplain mitigation, which is something that we may be working with, hopefully with some grant money, safe routes to schools. These are just areas that we had identified that as we move in through the next 10 years, we need to try to identify funding for. And then we also estimated that we need to fund maintenance on existing buildings in the 500 to 750,000 range, and that's something that we'll do through the budget process and not contemplate issuing debt for those things. The big numbers, and this is something that I know that we'll be talking about more on Thursday night, the county's estimate for the next 10 years for projected needs for the schools are $180 to $200 million. The following schools will probably need some attention in the next 10 fiscal years. Charlesville Middle, Old Christiansburg Middle, Bellevue Elementary, Christiansburg Elementary, Gilbert Linkus Elementary, Beeks Elementary, the Independent Secondary School, Christiansburg Primary, Harding Avenue Elementary, Charlesville Elementary, Christiansburg High, the athletic support facilities at the high schools. And then we've also, in one of the things we've been discussing with the schools, are opportunities to combine services. At some point, we may want to consider a joint school-county support facility for use of both jurisdictions. And over that 10 years, we also estimate through just the operating budget, we'll need to fund $4 to $5 million in maintenance needs for the schools as well. So just a quick pass through the spreadsheets and doing some tallying over the last couple of days. Over the next 10 years, there's the possibility that the county may be looking at between $243 million and $273 million in capital needs. Does that answer?
Just read the check.
Anything else?
It was, to be honest with you, it is a little staggering. It's like I told Carol, when you divide it by 10, it's not really as bad as you think it is, but it's still bad. It's still there's still some significant challenges, and I think one thing this board, I know that you will, as we go through the next budget cycle and as we work with the schools over the next budget cycle, we certainly have a tremendous amount of pent-up needs with the schools that are going to come to bear over the next 10 years. But we also have a number of county projects that aren't school-related that, candidly, we've put off for some time. As Carol and I went through the information and really looked at things, some of these things related to parks and recreation and county facilities and economic development have been on a list for probably 5 or 10 years already. And, you know, as I said, I've been here 3 years, and some of these things have never really come up in a lot of discussion, simply because I knew that the focus was, we had a couple of elementary schools going, then we had the high school projects, and then we had a courthouse, and now we've got a public safety building. So we've had a plate full of things already, but this is just some information to help you
Sleep at night.
I don't know about that.
And I don't know if this is the right time to bring it up, but we're talking about capital projects, and I guess I would like to see the school board and the board of supervisors start looking at the high schools are a big price tag ticket. We will have one of the older high schools will be Christiansburg High School, and as I understand it right now, we're kind of at our debt limit. But looking at, are we going to build a new high school for Christiansburg, or are we going to upgrade the current high school? And maybe we can look at making some upgrades as we're going along if we intend to keep it.
Well,
and so that's one of the things I guess I would like to see us working towards. I know it's off in the future, but kind of making some decisions now about whether we're going to upgrade some of those facilities or not.
Well, and it's a good point, Supervisor Tuck, and I think, and Carol, you helped me remember, but on all those schools that I read off the list, we're not contemplating building any new schools. It's just reinvesting in all the existing facilities. I believe that's right. Yeah, it's taking the existing facility and just redoing it.
But again, you know, those decisions can change the next few years. This is the list that's been in place, and we truly haven't had discussions around prioritizing or looking at how to break those out, because the priorities pretty much have been set based on the construction project.
And one of the things I did for the upcoming school board meeting was to contact all the Christiansburg Town Council members and try to get some of their input about the long-range goals, especially for Christiansburg High School, and find out. You know, I've gotten some input back. Hopefully, I'll get some more before Thursday. But I do think it's one of those things that we just have to address when you're looking at some school facilities. They're going to have 2 gymnasiums to comply with Title IX, basically. So in practice facilities, we have all, at least as I understand it, we wanted to make sure the kid in Charlottesville gets the same education that a kid in Blacksburg gets, and vice versa. And when you have a discrepancy in facilities, obviously that's an issue. But at the same time, I think, and I don't speak for all of Christiansburg. I know Jim and Gary have a slice of Christiansburg, and all of us are, as we talked about at the meeting down in Charlottesville, we're a heart that's got 7 chambers. That's right. And trying to make sure that we've got basic facilities that are equal. And so I would like to see what the plans are, and then maybe start taking some steps towards setting the capital aside and making some improvements as we go along, maybe paying cash for it as we go along. So,
you know, I would have something to say here. The one school that I don't see on this list, and the one that was supposed to get the next school way before Blacksburg ever got a school, was Fallen Branch. They're not listed on this thing as needing anything, although they've got more trailers for space than any other school in the county. So that was, and as far as I know and as far as I'm concerned, is still the #1 priority for the school board. That's what they have said before. That's the school that they said needed to be upgraded to handle more kids, or else we need to build something for that group of kids that's there. So Fallen Branch, you know, it didn't even make the list for cost improvements, but is the #1 school of the school board according to what they said.
And I'm hopeful that we'll take after the kids from Auburn, and we're using the old Christiansburg High School, Christiansburg Middle School, that maybe we can see that building used again as an elementary school to help alleviate a lot of the overcrowding that's over at Fallen Branch. And you're absolutely right. I mean, there is more. I want to say it's 8 or 9 mobile units out at Fallen Branch, and so I understand that, but I'm hopeful, at least that we can work with the school board about using that building again for an elementary school to alleviate some of the overcrowding.
Well, I'm hopeful it's that or someplace that can be used or else. But, you know, one of the things that we stated back when we were doing or proposing to do the 2 high schools and the middle school that we're working on right now was that we all knew as a board that we wasn't going to borrow any money for 10 more years from the time we borrowed that. And I think that's something we need to keep in mind when we start looking, what can we do today to help, but not what can we do today to go out and build new schools, because we don't have the money and we can't borrow the money without jeopardizing a lot of things. So that's just something that needs to be hammered a little bit.
Well, and staff certainly recognizes by putting a list like this in front of you, we're not saying that this all has to be done in 10 years, but we are saying there's a lot of things on this list that the board has indicated are priorities that I think you're going to hear from the school board are priorities, and we've got to start thinking about how to prioritize them and how to address them, because some of them are wishful things that can probably be delayed, but some of them are things that we're going to have to address.
And I'm sure the staff are doing this, but I'm wondering, like, what's the process? Because I know that sometimes, for various reasons, federal or state money becomes available for some of these topics, like to buy voting machines, for example, or for public safety buildings and stuff like that. So, do you foresee, or is the staff constantly on the lookout for those opportunities, so that since we are starting, and we do have a capital reserve, it's not huge, but we do have some money there, that if an opportunity arose so that we could get one of these things off of our list at, say, half price because we could get federal matching money, is that a possibility?
Yes, absolutely. I won't say constantly, but near constantly. Folks are always looking. Steve Sandy keeps an eye out on things. Donna Brown, who's with our 911 authorities, constantly looking at the public safety opportunities. You're right, the days of free money are pretty much gone, but if we can find matching money, you know, if we put up 25% or 50% and somebody puts up the rest, I mean, we're constantly looking for those.
Because that's an opportunity that if we spend, spending a little bit, to get that matching money will save us having to spend the entire amount in the long run, even if it's a relatively uncomfortable time to do that.
Right.
Is there any record kept of how many of these opportunities that we're trying to, or that we have already applied for? That would be kind of an interesting thing, and how many of them that we will apply for within the next 6 months. That would be also an interesting thing. I know they're out there. Other people get them. And Mr. Gabriel was absolutely right. I mean, we can't get them if we don't apply for them.
Right.
And I'd just be interested in knowing how many we've applied for, and also how many we're planning on applying for as we go along.
We certainly can do a better job of letting the board know when things are applied for. We always let you know when we receive something,
Yeah.
but we don't always let you know that all the things we're applying for. That's a good point.
I mean, it'd be handy for us to have it when we're out here talking to John Q. Public, say, well, we've applied for such and such and such and such, rather than, you know, we don't know. I don't know what we're doing other than just waiting, and maybe we'll get some money and maybe we won't. And if we do, that's good. If we don't, I guess we're just going to swallow it. Just don't help much.
And put this in, but sometimes you think and you learn that some of your more rural counties, they can get that money pretty quickly. When it comes to a county like ours, we don't qualify. So it's money's out there, and you can look at counties up around Carroll and Wythe and Grayson and those counties. How did you guys qualify for this? And it's the population and an average salary and so forth, where Montgomery County would not qualify.
But it has a lot to do. When we were doing the trails with Blacksburg, and
right,
we got several.
Yes, we did.
50-50 grants for that we applied for and through Blacksburg, and it doesn't seem to be a big problem if you're doing what they are wanting you to do.
Right.
But
if you're jumping through their hoops.
If it's schools, you got to talk to somebody that's pushing schools, and if it's athletic fields, you need to talk to somebody that's doing athletic fields. But it all could count if we could get some of those dollars, whether they're 50-50 matching loans or whatever they are. Matching, not loans.
You got something there?
Yeah, I was just glad to see the maintenance estimated cost for both the county and the schools, because I think, when you go back to basics, the basic thing is that you have to maintain what you have, because every building in this county that taxpayers have paid for is an investment of their money. And I think that over the years that I've been on the board, I think that we've seen a big recognition of the fact that buildings need to be maintained. It wasn't that way when I first got on the board. I've seen a big difference in the way people think about that, and it's really important. So I'm glad to see that you sort of have an estimated cost for the maintenance of the buildings, because that goes really far in making things last. And I think all of us were probably brought up that when you have something, you maintain it.
Take care of it.
You take care of it. So I'm glad that you have that on here.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right.
No, this was primarily for information tonight. I know we're going to be talking with the school board Thursday night, and I know this will be a subject of a lot of discussion in the months ahead, but we just wanted to share with you where we thought we are right now.
Will this be, can this be shared with the school board before our meeting so that they have a sense of?
Well, what I was going to do is after tonight's meeting, I wanted to share it with the superintendent tomorrow and let her share that with her board.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the next item is allocation of funds for school technology and telephone installation to Building C.
I believe, was this a request, Supervisor Gabriel, that you had asked to bring back?
Yeah, from, was it last meeting, I believe?
We
Yeah, I
asked
made it
about it
at the very. And my suggestion was just perhaps we could talk a little bit about it because it seemed to fill a capital need, honestly, making and ensure that the school board would be able to, I'm sorry, not the school board, the school services would be able to transition into Building C seamlessly. They're going to have to put about $100,000 worth of technology improvements in there before they were able to move in. And I didn't know if that was something that the board, since we do have a capital reserve, this might be an appropriate time to use some of that monies.
and someone correct me if I'm wrong, I thought that was part of what we voted, or was voted on at our last meeting, was $100,000 from their rollover money to be utilized for that. And I know that I guess is technically out of our budget, but it's their money that they did not spend. And that
it's operating money, not reserve money.
Reserve money. Obviously, I did not vote in favor of that at that point in time. I think I expressed the reasons why. I would not be in favor at this point in time of bringing it back up. It's already been voted upon. As far as allocating another $100,000, I guess, to replace that fund. I don't know if that's what you're.
Yeah, I think. Turned it off. No, I think part of my concern was that too, is that the monies that were from the rollover fund, I believe it was about $375,000 towards the move and the capital and the equipment together. And then 100,000 of that was going to go towards the technology improvements. Part of my concern is that the estimated cost of moving alone was well over what was allocated for that carryover money to construct the move. So I don't know if the money that has been allocated from that rollover funds will be sufficient to cover the move into the new building. And if that is the case, I think that would be a disservice to the county as a whole because of the cost sharing, long-term cost sharing opportunities to get them in as soon as possible to realize those long-term cost savings. So if they had to delay in any ways, we might have to, they might still have to occupy part of Junkin Street or part of Charlesville Middle or something like that. Those properties can't be turned over. We can't shut down maintenance, get it sold and stuff like that. So that was one of the main reasons that I wanted to bring that up, is that since we had a little bit in reserve, if we could ensure that they had enough money to make sure that this move is completed as quickly as possible, then it might be worth allocating that extra money.
And you're thinking of the money that we didn't anticipate having that we have.
Correct.
And right now we have that.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, we had about $4.3 million in one-time money as a result of the tax increase, and we've allocated approximately $1 million of that already. I think that's right. So we've got about 3.3 left. I think I'm doing my math right.
And that's where you would want to take the money from, the $100,000 from.
Yes.
Okay. How much money are you wanting to put over?
Well, simply enough to make sure that the move takes place. And I don't know that necessarily we would have to allocate a specific amount, but perhaps in conversation with the superintendent, is that they could get us a better estimate. I just remember attending the school board meetings, and maybe this has come up as well in other meetings, is that them saying that this is what we have to use, with the implication being that we're not sure if it's enough, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course, they've got that building up there, I guess, they can sell as soon as they move out of it also on Junkin Street, which won't bring a whole lot, but it might bring enough to fuse the difference if there's a need there for it. And I guess in that case, all you would need would be somebody to guarantee the money for that to pay, have that to pay for it, and a guarantor of the money up to whatever you spend.
How do we have any sense of how quickly those properties will be turned over to the county? Will it be something like Price's Fork? It'll be 6 months after.
Well, it should be sooner than that. Price's Fork had the stipulation that it was a 6-month transition period, so they could make sure they had everything they needed and whatnot. The other schools usually are turned over when they're no longer used. I'm I'm assuming that it will probably be within 90 to 120 days after the schools move out and over here.
Okay.
I think that would be a fair assumption.
That'll be something we should probably bring up at the meeting Thursday night. Is there,
Maybe we could ask exactly what they're...
what kind of time period, because they have to empty it, they'll have their auction.
Yeah, and the other side of that, you know, they've never been bashful about asking for whatever they need, you know, should they get to where they need it. And we should wait to see if there's a cry of need. Yeah, I don't know.
One of the things, I guess, and I'm throwing ideas out here to talk about, I would consider is if we were going to, you know, one of the things I'm a proponent of is using inmate labor in regards to trustees and the like. And I don't know if the school board, they may say, we don't want inmates, even if they're supervised by a deputy, to be moving these things, utilizing county vehicles in order to move them. But that's something I would at least like to look at, and one is cost savings as far as the move would help them reduce the cost. Again, maybe by those being trustee status, take off a few days that we have to pay for their incarceration, and plus give them an opportunity to get out and work. It's something I don't know if that the timetable, I don't know if they can move fast enough, but as far as funds, that's something I would at least consider if we thought we could save some money by utilizing that.
Well, you know, when you stop and think about it, just exactly how much are they going to need to move from up there down to here when they're going to have new furniture in here, they're going to have all new electronics, all new computer systems.
New phone system?
No, well, the school, they're not having that through us. They're having to buy all that. They won't have that.
Yeah, but they've got the money. That's what we
That's true.
voted last meeting to give them. So they've got the money for all the furniture, everything. So I don't know how much they have to move other than their pocketbooks.
Well, I'll just tell you, they got a lot of files over there. That's about the only thing I was thinking when you said what would they move. I know that.
Move what?
Files.
Like files of stuff, you know, like papers and...
Well, I'm sure they've got
that stuff.
papers and stuff, but I mean, can that cost $100,000 or even $50,000? I wouldn't think so.
Well, the other issue too is that the money that was allocated outside of the $100,000 for the technology improvements, that was supposed to cover the furniture and the move together, and that was what was well below their estimate of what everything would cost.
I thought the furniture and stuff was like $400,000.
No, the total I think was $431,000.
And 258 was furniture.
For the pay to play.
And about 238 or 258.
From the technology, so $250,000, excuse me, for new furniture and the move.
And something with those, what do you call those things that come down to divide the places?
What was the 300 and some
into
thousand?
offices?
The 350,000, I think it was talking about moving into Building C, but when they broke it down, there was $100,000
for technology.
Additional
technology.
It was additional money.
Those were carryover funds.
It was carryover funds.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It was
Started off
additional money.
431, and then worked its way down from the pay for play, and then the 250, as I recall. Now, somebody can pull it up.
No, that's right.
So that's the numbers that I recall.
Yeah.
Right.
How much was the total you recall?
431. It was 70,000, give or take, for pay for play. Then 350 roughly for the move into Building C. Out of that move into Building C, $100,000 for new wiring and to wire the building, because it was not, when it was done, it wasn't wired. It was wired to be, I guess, a courthouse, not a office building.
So that was $600 and some thousand.
No, the whole total was
the total was 431. The 70,000 comes out of that 431. Then the
I wished I had it in front of me. I think it was more than that.
No, it was 431, Gary.
72.
Yeah,
it was 431, but I think
that's
it was
what
some
we
more.
voted on 2 weeks ago.
Might not be.
You just happen to have it with you? Well, that's really good. The total was $431,056 $72,100 was for instruction, which was to address the Pay for Play initiative. The remaining $358,956 was for operations and maintenance, of which $100,000 of that was technology and telephone infrastructure for Building C, and $258,956 is furniture and moving to Building C. And in talking to the superintendent, that's the number that I know that she has some concerns about, is that 258.
And doesn't that include those divider things that you put in there to divide the large space into smaller space?
Pretty sure we've
Cute.
Well, no, I think
Where
what
does that
Supervisor Biggs is talking about,
Who pays for that?
the county paid for that when we upfit the large courtroom upstairs into 2 meeting rooms. There's a big folding divider. That was part of our upfit costs for the schools, so they don't have to cover that.
But did they have to divide that space into office space or something?
There are some spaces that they want to purchase modular furniture for to be able to divide it. Yes, right.
Because they're going to use this chamber here for...
They're still going to use this, right.
That don't require anything.
Right. That's a good thing.
Thank you, Carol.
Any other questions or comments?
So I guess, is the staff going to inquire in regards to if they're willing to have inmates move some of their furniture on the weekend or in the evenings?
Well, don't you have to ask the
their new
sheriff's
furniture will be
office?
delivered.
I know that, but
But don't you have to ask the sheriff's office about that whole thing, because they have liabilities and you have to hire staff to supervise inmates? So wouldn't you first ask them if that's a possibility before the school board meeting on Thursday?
either one of them could reject it. I think if the school board said, we don't want inmates on our property, then they don't get inmates on their property. If the sheriff says, I don't think I've got the staff for it, then he doesn't have the staff for it. Now, Deputy Wright, I won't put on the spot back here, but as I understand, the jail staff does not have as much opportunities to have the overtime, and that there's a list in the jail of people who sign up for the trash pickups that you see on 460. There's a truck that goes along there with a deputy involved, and there's a sign-up sheet. And I noticed there's not a lot of blanks on that sign-up sheet. And so that's one of the things. But I also don't know, how many trucks do we have that would be able to move those things?
We have 2 white pickup trucks.
And so how many inmates can we utilize? And whether those deputies...
Yeah, they have...
I'm sorry. Yeah, I thought he was referring to the inmates. We've got, don't we have 2 pickup trucks assigned to the litter cleanup?
No, they would not be driving the trucks. The deputies drive vehicles. And Brian, if you, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
We do have 2 trucks available. Some of the issues we're running into with the inmates are eligible.
Can you come to the mic, please?
Yeah,
come on
up.
Yeah. Welcome to the meeting, Brian.
Some of the issues we may run into would be inmates being eligible that meet certain requirements, and also deputy availability as well. So, but that would be something I would make a note of, and could specifically check with the sheriff and the jail chief on, and see what the availabilities are, and then get back with Mr. Meadows.
Thank you, Brian.
And like I said, either side could say, hey.
Yeah, I would think that the school board has some vehicles. They have maintenance vehicles all over the place, and they could have their operators drive
and they already
vehicles and things.
They are already planning that, because the superintendent's told me that they're going to try to maximize the funding for the replacement of some of the old furniture, which means they've got to minimize the moving expense, which means that their folks are going to try to do as much as they possibly can.
And Brian, maybe you could get an idea of how many deputies that you would need, and just an estimate as to the cost. Not put any pressure on you at all.
They do that by the hour, and they won't know until they... That's how the deputies get paid.
Is that it on this subject? We'll move on to the VDOT Project Administration Agreement for Revenue Sharing. Mr. Sandy going to be involved in that?
Yeah. Good.
Well, you guys could go ahead, but I'm going to take a
Why don't we
break.
take a 5-minute break?
Yeah.
Okay. The next item is our VDOT revenue sharing agreement on the 109 property.
Who's got the ball?
Who's got the ball? Mr. Sandy?
I'll start, I guess. This is, earlier it was brought up about some projects where we're using some federal money and some matching money, and this is, I guess, one example of those, where we're using some revenue sharing funds, working with 2 private developers to provide the 50% county match in order to build some new streets and realign one, in particular, Meadow Creek Road. They're out by exit 109 in the Carillion New River Valley Hospital. If you've been on Meadow Creek, it's kind of a curvy, windy road there at the intersection with Tyler. We're working on a draft agreement, I think you have in your packet, with RWW36 LLC, which is Roger Woody's property that owns some of the land out there. And they are going to do the realignment of that road as part of their development. But it's also a safety improvement and a traffic flow improvement for that area. So we were able to get funding from VDOT, revenue sharing funds. The total project amount was almost 1.3 million, and so the 50% of that would be what the developer would be responsible for providing. So the agreement in your package is something that Mr. McMahon has drafted to just basically set the playing rules with the developer, between the county and the developer, that the county is expecting that 50% match be provided up front. So there's no obligation on the county's part to pay that 50%. Should something happen during the project or before the project gets completed, we'll have the funds in place to continue that project or pay back VDOT if there's some reason the project does not continue or is halted before it's completed. And I guess the other part of it is the project has been split into 3 phases that you'll see in the agreement, which is the preliminary engineering, and then second phase is right-of-way and utilities, and the third phase would be construction. And each part of that grant funding includes administration. This would be a locally administered project, which is the first one that the county's actually done, and Dan Brew is going to be the project administrator, and any fees for the contract administration will be paid for out of the revenue sharing funds. So again, with this project, there's no obligation for the county to put up any money up front, and there's no obligation for the county to pay any of the required matching funds as part of this project. This is one of the projects. The other project that got funded is kind of the other side of Tyler, which would include the roundabout, which we had a lot of discussion about a couple years ago on a rezoning approval. There would be a new roundabout, and then a long connecting road that would run parallel to 81 and connect with Baines Chapel Road and provide a through road, if you will, from Baines Chapel and Dry Valley Road directly to Tyler Road there at the roundabout and at the interchange. That project, we don't have a draft agreement for that one yet. That'll be the next one that we'll draft and look to execute with them. I guess the other phase of this is just VDOT requires that there be a project agreement to accept the funds that VDOT has awarded, and also to agree to locally administer the project. And I think that's under your new business to come up later to authorize that. And I know that's kind of quick, but I'll be happy to try to answer any questions you have. Dan's here, and Marty did a great job drafting the draft agreement, which has been sent to Mr. Woody for his review by him and his attorney as well. So,
yeah, I'll ask a quick question. Do you think Dan has any experience to be the project manager out there?
Well, we have to check a lot of references, but we feel pretty good about it.
Anybody else got any questions or comments for Steve?
And I was looking through the presentation. How far up Meadow Creek are we talking about improving or straightening, approximately?
Just past where Barn Road comes in. If you're familiar with Barn Road, it's a small gravel road that runs by the hospital property. So where Barn Road connects with Meadow Creek, from there back to Tyler will be pretty much, it'll just be a straight shot to Tyler. It'll take out all the curves. There's kind of a vertical curve and a horizontal curve. It'll just straighten that right out. Yep.
And then the old part will be vacated.
Correct. Yeah, so at some point we'll be coming back to you. Once the new road's complete, we'll come back to the board to authorize the vacation of that old right-of-way, so they can get that back as part of his development as well.
And just for clarification, so there are no county funds being used for this revenue match. It's the VDOT funds and the developer.
That's correct. With the revenue sharing, it's a 50-50 match. Normally, it's the county's 50%, matched with VDOT's 50%. What we've done in this case is we're kind of the middleman, if you will, and the developer is paying the county share of the 50% match. So we still have the obligation of the grant, and then
the way it's structured is we've divided into phases. And we're going to do we'll do phase one first. Phase one's estimated to be $150,000, and so we go to the developer and we say, before we even start phase one and enter into any contracts, you got to get $75,000 in cash up front. And so once we get that, then Dan will start the phase one project. We'll start putting out bids for design, and then we'll start doing the bid documents and start paying bills. And then while we're paying bills with his 75, we're also getting reimbursed from VDOT. And so we're always going to have money flowing back and forth, but we're not putting any county money. The only thing we're putting up front is staff time.
Anybody else?
Sounds wonderful to me.
Pardon?
Sounds wonderful.
The next item is FY 2014 revenue sharing funds, and who's going to handle that?
I'll take that one. Under tab G, you have some information that we received a couple of weeks ago regarding the opportunity to apply for revenue sharing funds. As you're aware, the county has not applied for any new revenue sharing funds the past several years, simply because the state has been so far behind on completing the projects that we had funds designated for. The reason I added is that we have this on the agenda tonight, and I was just flipping through here, and we did not include the current funds, the current projects that we still have revenue funds outstanding for, but I wanted to include this on the agenda this evening so you might have an opportunity to begin thinking about, are there other roads or portions of roads in the county that you would like to apply for revenue sharing funds for? And as importantly as that is, how much would the county be thinking? Well, Steve's got it. Why don't you come up and... I apologize that wasn't in the packet. I thought it was.
Well, I just have from one of the VDOT updates, the current revenue sharing projects is Yellow Sulphur Road, Willis Hollow Road, and Allegheny Springs Road are the ones that are currently VDOT administered revenue sharing projects. The two that I just spoke about would be the two newest ones that would be locally administered, which would be the ones that the county would be handling all the contract administration and everything for those. And those are, I believe, are the only projects that are still out there under revenue sharing that we have funds for. And the deadline, I guess, for FY14 projects would be October 19th, I think is the date. So we wanted to get it before you to give you at least one more meeting in between to see if you had any ideas for any future projects that you might want to consider for revenue sharing funds. You can always put the application in, and then you can choose not to accept those funds if for some reason you don't have the money at that time. But
and Steve, remind me, I think don't they encourage you to apply for revenue sharing funds for projects that are already in the plan to accelerate their completion? Is that?
Well, I think and I think Dan was going to mention something about that too, was I think with the way VDOT is right now, it's like continuation of existing projects, like Yellow Sulphur, for instance, and Allegheny Springs or Mount Pleasant, one of those that we've done parts of, but we haven't finished. I think they look at those as stronger candidates to continue those. And there's also the other piece of revenue sharing is it can be used for maintenance projects as well. For a while, they took maintenance projects off the table, but now maintenance projects are back on. So you can also do maintenance projects with revenue sharing funds and use the 50% match to get some of those completed as well. Do you have anything to?
And we can't.
All this time, yes.
I know. And we can ask for up to $10 million. I don't anticipate the board. I didn't figure the board would be looking at that number, but.
Mr. Creed.
Are you saying there's a possibility of us having some revenue sharing funds available for some worthwhile projects?
Well, we have, again, going back to the reserve funds that we talked about earlier in the meeting, we do have some funds available in capital reserve if the board were to choose to allocate some of that for revenue sharing.
Because we have what is the worst part of Mount Pleasant still to go. They are supposed to be going to tar and gravel up to where it gets rough. But between there and where it was good on the other side is, I don't know, it's about 1.5 miles. And I'd be satisfied if I could get 1,000 foot. It's just something to say that we started something. It's a tough road and it's a dangerous road coming down through there, but still, it's something that if we fix the rest of it, and I never have figured out why we had to put it into 3 different things rather than have it all as one, but yes, I'm glad we did, because at least we got some of it done, or got some of it done, going to get some of it all done, and need to get some of the rest of it done. But it's the part that was left out that is absolutely the worst. You know, you got some 25, 30-foot holes that you can get over in if you ain't real careful.
I've got a few in my neighborhood that resemble that remark. So if there's anybody else, I've got a question to Mr. Brew, if I may. Okay. As the board knows, I've been working on a thing called alternative paving. All right, and Mr. Meadows and Mr. Brew have been very helpful in analyzing and deciding if this is a good, viable alternative. As we are talking about revenue sharing, we can maybe look at some of this substance to increase our miles per dollar. And Dan, could you kind of give us a little bit of history on what you found out in the last 4 or 5 months since we started this?
I'll be glad to. Yes, I have been working with trying to coordinate an effort to do a demonstration project on a product called dirt glue, and as an alternative to paving, where you have roads not like what you were talking about down there that need much more than just a good surface to drive on. And I think we're at a point now where we're going to be able to do a small section of Old Sourwood Road. I think it's 717. Hopefully sometime next week. What they're willing to donate, the dirt glue people, is enough material to do about 300-foot section. at the from the intersection of the paved road there, 610, for about 300 feet. And then they also have another product which is called Dustless, which is a dust suppressant product that they have, which will also try, they're going to donate that, and that'll be put on that road as well in front of some of the houses. VDOT has accepted that as a product that they think merits additional consideration, and they're going to evaluate it as a new product. Their review committee has reviewed what was sent to them by the Dirt Glue people, and they will be out there on the day that the work is done. And that's where I talked to Jim is that a little bit is that certainly Old Sourwood Road is one that doesn't have a whole lot of issues and does have an extremely high traffic count. And being as how this is considered a maintenance product instead of a construction product, may be of some merit to consider doing the rest of that road with dirt glue, so you have a real good 1 mile test section instead of 300 feet. We tried to get the whole one done, the whole length of the road done, and they couldn't. They didn't want to do that much right now. So anyway, we will be there will be a demonstration product next week, hopefully. I think they'll ship it down. VDOT's going to supply the equipment and what little additional stone is needed for the road, and Dirt Glue is going to supply the material. We'll see how it works.
And they're asking us to supply the freight, which will be about $700 to $1,000 to bring the material in. Now, I've been asked this by people many times, and I've conveyed this to Dan also, is it going to hold up? And from what Dan's experience is with them, I'll let him explain.
I think, you know, I don't know. That's one of the reasons we're doing a test section and not, you know, jumping into any more than what we are. But from what we have seen, this is a different product, or what VDOT has seen particularly, is a different product than some of the others that have been promoted as an alternative, and really were nothing more than something akin to calcium chloride, which works very well for a while, but if you have a lot of rain, then you lose the effect of what the product does. This, from what I've been able to find out, and what VDOT thinks is not one of those products, and it's something that does, they think will do good, but you don't know till you try it. And so that's where we are.
Yeah. Any other questions on it, or?
Well, do they have anywhere else that they've used it in similar temperature and terrain situations that they have said, okay, we put it down, it lasted 3 years, or they put it down and it lasted? Do they have anything like that in their experience portfolio?
They have done some at Penn State, and I guess that would be the closest. Certainly they've done a lot overseas, but I think they've run into, in particular in some other states, they've run hard up against the asphalt lobby, but Penn State has used that on some roads up there on their campus, similar to some of the roads that Virginia Tech has, that we all see dust clouds flying when vehicles go by. And the guy from Penn State was actually down here with the Dirt Glue people, and he will be here when they apply. And they say it's done an excellent job, and it's been, I think he said about 10 years ago they put that down up there.
Thank you.
Would you mind sharing this information with maybe Virginia Tech? And I don't know if you may have already done it with their engineering department. I don't know if they have anyone who is road construction.
I know some of those types over there, and we'll be sure that they're aware of when we do it, and if they want to come down and observe and monitor, they can. Be glad to.
Thank you.
I've also got a couple of other counties that want to come and watch it. You were asking about where's it been done. They had an article on their website about a little town in, I believe it was North Dakota, or maybe Montana. And this town got lost because of the interstate going through. And there was a little business on this road that pretty much paralleled the interstate. And because the interstate was through, they didn't put any money into repairing this road. Well, apparently the county took $400,000 and bought a piece of equipment, and they went down this road and they tore it up with this piece of equipment, and they leveled it back out. And they tore up the old asphalt and everything the way I read it, and they leveled it back out and they sprayed this dirt glue on it, and apparently they're very satisfied with the project. And I believe that's been 2 or 3 years now. And if you can do it in North Dakota with the weather there, you know, it makes me feel pretty comfortable. But this has been a product or a project that I really appreciate the help from Dan on and VDOT. He's been my inroad to there, because they kind of blocked me the first time I started talking about it.
Let me ask a question. Do they have any place close here that they would possibly, in the near future, set up some kind of a thing to where that they could produce it here rather than having to pay freight all the way? Sounds like it's pretty expensive to move.
I don't know how much quantity it is, Gary. And at this point, they only have the one location, I believe it's in Boston.
Right.
So until they can get enough volume or business, you know, I don't know that they'd be.
Do we know how much? I mean, we're talking about something that's supposed to be a whole lot less expensive than surface treating or asphalt. Do we know how much per ton, I guess is the answer, that they would charge us for it? Or do we know how much is put on 300 feet?
Well, what they're providing both on the dirt glue and that dustless is somewhere around $6,000 worth of material. And if you wanted to do the rest of the road, you are going to have to put a little bit of stone on it, but you're talking, my best guess is around $150,000. Now, if you're looking at just strictly that product versus paving, there's not a lot of difference, maybe about 10–15% difference in cost. But the thing is that you can't pave without putting stone under it. And you know, you're going to have a 6-inch base of stone. And on this particular road down here, Old Sourwood, we're going to have to, all they're talking about doing is putting down about 2 inches of stone and mixing it with the clay that is there. So when you get into including the other things other than specifically the product, you're more in the 25 or 30% saving. And if you get into a road where once you get into construction, right now this is being called maintenance, and it's operating under a different set of rules. Paving is construction, You aren't going to be able to go out, VDOT and nobody's standards allow you to go out and pave a road without doing a whole lot more. You know what the costs are on doing a project. And those, if you start talking about those numbers, it's huge. It's huge. But like I say, this 1 mile, I think you can do. I think it can be done for around $150,000, which is pretty economical. If you were going to put stone and pave it exactly as it is, it would be 200 and change, 200,000.
Let me ask you one more question then. That's for paving with asphalt. You say 25 to 30%. If we only were talking about tar and gravel, what are we talking about?
It probably wouldn't be a lot of difference at all. The thing is, the product, it's what you got to put underneath it for it to be effective. And of course, surface treating, if you do the prime and double seal, it's cheaper than paving, and it may not be a lot of difference in cost at all.
Okay, that was my question, because we're starting to try to do a lot of rustic roads, which we are doing the tar and gravel. And
it's the other things when you get into the construction project where you got to do other things other than strictly putting a surface on it.
Right.
And that's the cost.
And if it proves to be as good as asphalt, then that would be the way to go.
As long as it's characterized as maintenance, you don't have to do anything to anything other than the surface. But you got to have the right road for it. You know, like you were talking about 639. Well, there's absolutely no way that you would even think about doing it there. One thing, there's nothing to mix.
No,
that's on solid rock.
Yeah, it's right.
So there are roads that have application, like that old Sourwood's got 180 vehicles a day on it, and I think this is an excellent application for it.
I agree.
And VDOT had gave us a number earlier that was $1 million for a mile. Is that what you're talking about when your asphalt, all the other things that go with it?
Right. That's when you get into a real a regular construction project, and $1 million.
That's when you're blasting rocks and
grading,
digging up rocks, and that's where your cost gets.
Widening, getting the typical section that VDOT wants. You're not just maintaining what's out there. It's still going to be a gravel road. It's just the gravel's not going anywhere, hopefully.
Okay. Thank you very much. And I believe that's the last thing on this work session. Do I have a motion to go out of work session, please?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Chairman Lettuce?
Aye.
6 ayes.
All right. New business, subject A, VDOT Project Administration Agreement. And I guess that's on what we talked about in work session?
We talked about under work session, and the agreement's under tab F if anybody has any questions, but if the board is okay with what was discussed, we'd like to see that resolution approved.
Do I have a motion, please?
Move approval.
Sure.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Chairman Lettuce?
Aye.
6 ayes.
And subject B is resolution accepting the conveyance from the County School Board of Montgomery County of the old Prices Fork Elementary School property. Do I have a motion, please?
Moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Amen. Look forward to working with
Be
all
careful what you ask for.
Well, it's really been, I think they said 6 months in November when they moved out, so it makes it about 10.
10, 9, 10.
9, 10, yeah. So.
Yeah. Roll call, please.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Chairman Lettuce?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Resolution supporting restoration of state funds for aid to localities.
So moved.
Any discussion, please?
I'd like to move it, I don't know how many times, but let's get it in there.
How about let them write us a check?
Instead of us
We've
writing
been writing
up
plenty of
one,
them
wouldn't that be
tonight.
refreshing? And then they call it a surplus. Mhm.
Well, there, as Supervisor Biggs noted as well, there have been a number of other localities that have adopted similar resolutions. Whether it will get anybody's attention or not remains to be seen, but I think it's very important that we point out to the state that one of the reasons they continue to have a surplus is they're taking money away from localities to create that surplus. So,
If we didn't meet our obligations, we'd have a surplus too. Right?
Absolutely.
I simply wanted to enthusiastically third the motion. That's all.
All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Chair Palettis?
Aye.
6 ayes.
The next item is a resolution of support for the Habitat for Humanity of the New River Valley.
So moved.
Second?
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Chair Palettis?
Aye.
6 ayes.
And the next item is the county administrators, county attorney's report. No report. And the next is the county administrator's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have a couple items. One item that was noted in your agenda under tab I are the legislative priorities. We need to begin to work on those for 2013. We usually try to have those reviewed and adopted by the time the board attends the VACO meeting in November. Under tab I are the priorities that this board adopted for 2012. What I'd like to ask you to do between now and the next meeting, if you will, is take an opportunity to review those. We will probably have a work session at one of the October board meetings to discuss which ones of those priorities you'd like to carry forward, which ones of those you'd like to take out, and also if there's any that you would like to add. The board's instruction since I've been here has pretty much been you want to try to keep it to one page, so when you go in to talk to the legislators, you're not handing them a 20-page document, but you're pretty concise. So as you have the opportunity to look at those in the coming weeks, we will be talking about those at a work session in October. Also, just a couple of other things I wanted to point out.
Can I ask you just a question about that,
sure.
first of all? Is that we had kind of a rather extensive discussion, kind of not directly related to this, but kind of around this with our extended work session over in Building C. So perhaps when we have that work session, if we could be not only have this document, but the notes from that discussion as well, I think that might help us.
Absolutely.
Produce that new document.
Absolutely.
One other thing, we're planning to have a get-together with our legislators prior to
the legislative session.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Just a couple of other items of note. I don't know how many of you were aware of this, but on Friday, September 14th, there were 30 dentists throughout the New River Valley that did a dental aid day for citizens in the New River Valley. It was similar to what they do in events in Roanoke, but instead of doing it all in one place, these 30 dentists volunteered their facilities for the day, and folks that were qualified through the free clinic could go to these dentists, and they expected, I did not get a final count, I haven't gotten an update, but they expected between 260 and 300 patients for a retail value of services between $175,000 and $250,000. So that was quite a generous thing that the dentists in our community did, and certainly want to pass along thanks to all those that participated that day.
Can I say something to that? And that is, we also don't want to forget all of the supporters who gave money to them to help for the, as they say, for the drugs.
Right.
They have to give them when fixing the teeth or pulling a tooth or whatever. I know Shelter Rotary Club was a sponsor of that, and there's several other, I don't know all of them, but there's several sponsors around the whole county that helped out in that, and that's a very important thing when you can get people to get in and be behind projects such as that.
Absolutely. Well, I wanted to mention that, number one, to inform you, and number two, to just make sure the board was okay with me writing a letter, not to all 30 dentists, but to the president of the Dental Aid Partners of the New River Valley, who provided this information to me, that just basically says, on behalf of the board, thank you for the service that you provided in the community, and I'd certainly like to do that.
Yes.
Thank you. Just a couple of other reminders. This Wednesday from 12 to 1:30, if you're available, we'll have our annual Employee Service Recognition Luncheon. We've done this for a couple of years now, and we do it as a luncheon simply because it seems to work out best for the employees to be able to be here that day, but that's Wednesday from 12 to 1:30. And then the last thing I wanted to mention to you, well, two things. One, don't forget our meeting with the school board, the joint school board meeting on Thursday night. Dinner will be served at 6, and the meeting begins at 7.
Where's that going to be?
It's going to be in Building C over here. They are starting dinner at 6, but the meeting itself won't start until 7. Last thing, I wanted to just provide you with information. Every year VDOT has hearings around the state on the proposed 6-year plan. You know, usually what they find at those meetings is that there's a whole lot of requests and not a lot of money to cover them. What's interesting this year is the 6-year plan hearing for our region of the state will be here in this room on, I believe that's a Wednesday, November 7th. But it'll be on November 7th. I wanted to give you this information in case you want to attend. Since it is here, I will probably attend along with some other folks from the county. And maybe we'll get lucky this year and they'll tell us they've got plenty of money to fund everything we're looking for.
That would be luck.
Well, yeah.
This is the courthouse groundbreaking.
It is. Courthouse ribbon cuttings that morning, and talk to the state that night. Mr. Chair, that's all I have this evening.
All right. And Mr. Brown.
Two things. First thing, I want to remind county citizens about Montgomery County conversations. We have several meetings planned around the county. The first one we had at the Meadowbrook Center in Charlottesville on September the 17th. Considering it was a cold and rainy night, I thought we had a pretty good turnout of about 20+ people. We had good dialogue, excellent dialogue between the board and the citizens and so forth. And the whole thing about it is that when we have public addresses here, we listen, we do not respond. But in these county conversations, it gave us an opportunity for it to be a two-way conversation. The citizens there, they asked excellent questions, like about meals taxes, for an example. I won't go into everything just for the sake of time, but it was an excellent exchange of information from our board and the citizens. Now, there are 3 more of these meetings set up. Thursday, October 4th, at Kipps Elementary School. And because it's in a particular area, it doesn't mean that someone from any part of the county, if you missed the one on the 17th and you want to come to the one on the 4th, so do it. The third one, Monday, October 15th, at Christiansburg Middle School. So if you miss 1 and 2, you can come to the third one. And the fourth one, Monday, October the 29th, at the Blacksburg Library. Now, all of these meetings are starting at 7 p.m. And if you want to tell your friends and relatives and neighbors and everything about them, that's the same thing. When we got through with the meeting in Charlottesville, for the people that didn't come, we asked them to share the information that we share with them, with their friends and neighbors. Did I miss anything on that?
One thing, can I say something about that real quick? PSK radio station has been doing a public service announcement on these meetings, and that's something that I feel is a very honorable thing for them to do, as they do support the communities in a lot of ways. And my wife heard it 3 times today, and she's not in the car that much, so they're popping them out there.
That's good. That's good. The second thing, the Tennant Hill SUP request has been out there for some time. I don't know whether it's a year and a half, 2 years, and things like this. And I understand that they are wanting their CO so they could occupy their addition to the building. I want to, since no one spoke in opposition and the city of Rapids was okay with it and everything, I'd like to make a, I guess, is it a resolution or propose that we approve their SUP under my board report.
Okay, so you're making a motion?
I'm making a motion.
And do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Now, before we go any further, we had this discussion at agenda review in case we were able to do this.
We actually anticipated
and we have a
you might be
resolution
thinking
already
that.
written up if to be accepted or not. So to read it. If not, we can.
So the motion in the second is to approve.
Yeah.
Yes.
Approve this.
Okay. Are we ready for roll call?
I don't know if there's any questions. Obviously, it's gone through the planning commission. There was only one dissenting vote. There were some questions about dust. There were some questions about future development, but there was a lot of folks who pointed out that this is a little mom and pop organization that's been there and been trying to make it. They've expanded a little bit, but this is a use that they have been continuing and doing for 20 plus years. And there was general consensus on the planning commission that this should be approved. I want to say it was a 6-to-1 vote.
If it was a 6-to-1 vote, why does it say it was 8-to-0 on the justification? Was there a separate vote?
I know that, or I believe Brian Rice voted against it.
That was somewhere in our information.
Yeah, it was in the other document too, so I just want to make sure that it was 6-to-1.
Okay, I was right.
Yeah, you're right.
Could we perhaps amend the resolution to reflect that?
Yes,
yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, I read that too.
Okay, who made the motion?
I did.
Okay, do we?
Did you accept the friendly amendment?
Can I retract it and do an amendment with the 7-to-1 added?
6-1.
I mean, 6-1.
Yeah, because there was one absent, I believe.
Yes.
Okay,
And,
second?
And I have no problem seconding that.
And just to be clear, the vote's not really part of the resolution, it's just part of the justification tab. So we amend the justification, but it's really not part of the resolution.
Right.
Okay.
But since it will be part of the record, you want to make sure the record is right.
It had to be correct. Okay.
Okay, then roll call, please.
Mr. Tapp?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Chair Willis?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
That's it for me.
Supervisor Biggs.
Well, I also want to comment on the community meeting. I want to say that the staff did an outstanding job in the PowerPoint presentation and getting sort of the ball rolling. I thought the handout was extremely helpful, and so I brought it up at our library board meeting, which we had in Floyd County, and Mr. Yoder, who serves as the liaison from the Floyd County Board of Supervisors, wanted a copy of our presentation in case they might want to do something like that to get the word out in their community. So I've talked with Carol to send it over there. They'd have to, of course, get it for their specific, needs, but they were interested in it, and I think some of the library board members might come to some of the community meetings. So I thought also it was very successful and that we had a good turnout, and I really enjoyed coming down to Gary's district. I always enjoy going down there, and it was very good. And I also want to congratulate Mr. Creed on his grandchild. Great-grandchild.
Great-grandchild.
I mean, this is quite an accomplishment, but he didn't bring any pictures. So that's the next assignment for you, is to bring pictures. And that's all I have.
Mr. Creed.
You know, I want to bring something up that might not be worth a hoot, but it just dawned on me when we started this meeting that when we have a crowd out here, there's no way in heck they can see this flag over here when we pledge allegiance. And what I was wondering is, why couldn't we put that on screen, have them show it on screen, have a flag on screen, and at least everybody, when we're pledging allegiance to the flag, they can see one. So that's just
a good idea.
I'd be glad to. One thing I had thought about when I first came here was moving the flags to the corners of the podium here. The problem with that is it blocks your view.
It could be on these walls and
sure
thing there, and just be not hurt anybody and do somebody some good too.
Easy.
Okay. And and this is just for the people who are in the town of Christiansburg who happen to have children in Fallen Branch School. Didn't see any of them down to Eastern Montgomery when we had the meetings down there, and I would encourage them to get out to the next meeting that this board has, and that's when's the next one in Christiansburg? It's
the 4th. No, Christiansburg will be the 15th of October.
15th of October, and it's
at Christiansburg Middle.
Christiansburg Middle. So that's all. Just wanted to make sure that they knew that it was there and that they can be included in that part. Means they didn't get down there.
Can I throw one thing in real quick? I know Mr. Supervisor Gabriel's next. I did want to mention, and thank you, Carol, for reminding me, that Thursday before the school board meeting, at dinner's at 6, the meeting's at 7, the Citizens Academy that we have with the county and the town of Christiansburg, their graduation ceremony's at 5:30, I believe. Isn't that correct? Yeah, it's at 5:30. And it's here, right? It's in here at 5:30. So if you have the opportunity to come in a little early before dinner, I'm sure they would like to see you. Thank you for reminding me of that.
I went last year, and it was really good, and the networking was really good between the members of that group class.
Thank you.
All right. Supervisor Gabriel.
Just two brief things. First of all, unfortunately, I won't be able to attend the employee luncheon on Wednesday. I'll be teaching at Tech just about that time. But I just wanted to say that I'm still a newbie here, and I have been continuously impressed throughout my time here since January with the quality and the professionalism of the staff here. And so they're absolutely fully justified in recognizing all their accomplishments, and I wish I could be there. The other thing is that I attended, of course, the school board meeting last week. Not too much of interest there for this board. I mean, we're obviously going to talk a lot more about this on Thursday. Capital projects are on track. Everything's due to open on time and on budget so far, which is good news. The bad news is there was an overview of their budget situation for next year, and right now they're going to be starting out, if my math is correct, about $400,000 in the hole, $400,000 less than they have this year, because although the state is increasing funding slightly, they have to make up VRS contributions next year, which will put them in that hole. And I don't think this will happen, but I've been known to be wrong in the past, if sequestration hits the federal government, they're looking at an 8% decrease in federal funding as well, and that would be a real significant amount of money as well. So it's not really rosy as far as that, in addition to the $180 million capital needs. So with that ray of sunshine, I will close my report.
Well, the Planning Commission has asked that I come forward, and the chickens have come home to roost in Montgomery County. They have brought up the issue of chicken ordinance. You may not understand this, but if you live out in the county, not in one of the towns, and you're in a residential district, and you own 220 acres, which one landowner does, you're not allowed to have any chickens on that 220 acres. That's where our current ordinances are. And they have been getting calls, the staff have been getting calls with questions, can I have chickens in residential areas? There was one residential closing that did not take place. Someone didn't buy a house because they were told that they could not have chickens on a tract of land. And I want to say that tract of land may have been 10 acres. So that gives you an idea. I know that the town of Blacksburg has dealt with it. I know the town of Christiansburg has dealt with it. And I guess at this point in time, the Planning Commission has asked me to approach this board about bringing it up and trying to come up with something. As someone who does have, I've got right now about 14 hens. And I don't know if Jim's got any chickens at this point or not.
No.
But as far as coming up with some kind of amendment, looking at what some of the other localities, that's what the Planning Commission, but they just want to know from you, is this something that you want them to look at? Is this something that you don't want them to look at? Personally, I do think it's something that we need to address. It's become a hobby now for a lot of folks, and whether we're going to allow it or not allow it, but in some ways, when you've got a tract of land, and as I mentioned, there's one tract that's over 220 acres, and they're not allowed to have a single chicken on that 220 acres under our zoning ordinances at this point in time.
You could cause them people to break the law. If I had that kind of acreage, I could have 200 chickens, and nobody would know anything about it unless they went in to search,
But here's the problem. You catch the honest folks who call you up and say, "Can I have this?" And then they're told they can't. And as I said, somebody didn't buy a piece of property as a result of it.
And I think so. Go ahead, Mr. Craig, and then I'll go ahead.
I was just going to say, this gets right back to the pigs. Remember we was talking about them? If that on that 250 acres or 1,000 acres, if his house happens to be within 100 foot of the other person's house, and he wants to have chickens there, or pigs there, if he puts them over in a pen closer to their house than he does his, then he shouldn't be allowed to have them.
Well, part of that, what you're talking about, was in an agricultural district, and this is in our residential districts. There are requirements in regards to whether you can have pigs in a residential district. I think you're allowed, somebody can correct me, I think you're allowed 2 horses in some of the residential districts. If you've got 5 acres. So you can have 2 horses, but you can't have any chickens at all. And so I think we need to look at it.
I think you do too.
So
I think that's fine.
Wow.
The only thing I would add is that when I was running for Board of Supervisors, that was when Blacksburg Town Council was talking about this, and I happened to attend a party with a poultry expert from Virginia Tech, and I was talking with him about it. He said, not a single person from the town council approached anyone at Virginia Tech about this issue. And so if we do look at it, I would hope that we would be able to talk to some of the experts at Tech, and I think they would say, this is really not a problem, to change this ordinance. So.
One of the things, Mr. Sandy and Chris and I have talked a little bit about this in the last few days. And I got a recommendation on it that when somebody's got 220 acres or 5 acres or 10 acres, they have the ability to downzone into A1. And some of those areas didn't really have any reason to be in R1 except for that's the way it was owned when they bought it. And I think that would make it cleaner. But there's some other ideas that have been brought to the table that may work, and I just want to give you my quick opinion on it.
And I'll be happy to take any ideas back to the Planning Commission and talk about those. And there were, Gary, there is, in looking at other localities that have approved chickens, there are setbacks in regards to the residential areas as far as setbacks for chickens, whether they can have roosters or not, all those type of things are all part of it. If you are in and there's a whole qualification for animals, but I think if you're in an A1 district and you've got, I want to say it may be for every acre you could have up to 200 chickens. If you're in an A1 district, and so there's a lot of different things to look at, and as I understand it, if you're going out country club on the right-hand side, you're talking about that you're in an agricultural district. On the left-hand side, everything to your left would be residential, and all those farms out there are I guess in a residential district, as I was being explained to me at the Planning Commission. So I would like to see us address it, and I guess I'm looking for thumbs up, thumbs down as far as having the Planning Commission look at it.
And I'll say one thing. Chris, I'm glad that you are on the Planning Commission. You're probably the only one on the commission who has chickens, who understands chickens, and so forth. So I'm sure all of those citizens who's thinking about chickens are glad that you're there.
And he has goats too.
You know, the chickens is not the problem. It's the roosters that's the problem that crow at 5 o'clock in the morning if you got them up against somebody else's house. And therefore, you know, I'm not against chickens, hogs, horses, cows. I've had them all when I was little. I would not care what anybody has, but they should accept as much of the area that these animals run in as they're going to be willing to give their neighbors. Therein lies your problem, and I don't know what the answer to it is, but you know, it's no different no matter which animal you talk about. All of them have some thing that could be wrong, no matter what you're talking about. You know, like I say, chickens is not the problem. It's the roosters that most people have a problem with. And if you want to have something really bad, get you some guineas.
That was brought up at the Planning Commission as far as guineas were mentioned, but I think there was something talking about crowing hens, which I had not heard of.
But there's some of them out there can make some crazy noises, and
I have some of those.
Long ways. And I don't know how you separate chickens from guineas, because guineas is a type of chicken.
Well,
peacocks
I think
too.
they have
Peacocks.
separated, and peacocks, absolutely, that was another thing.
Yeah.
But I think we can look at it and look at what some of the other localities have done and talk with Virginia Tech and go from there.
I just like for them to look at the pigs while they're at it.
I'd like to just make one more statement on that, and Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, or Marty, but I think this coming into an R1 district, we can kind of set our own rules, because it's not been done before. We can set our own ordinance on it. We can say if you have 5 acres or more, we can put setbacks in it. If you're changing it and stays in R1.
Right.
Okay.
R1 doesn't have to be 10 acres, right?
It doesn't have to be, but we can restrict chickens to a certain amount of property. Not all R1, not in a, you know.
Not if you put them up against somebody else.
Well,
I'll make sure that we talk about setbacks.
we can put those setbacks and stuff in there as an ordinance, is what I'm saying. It's not something that.
But I would think that R1 would have more problems than anything else.
Well, and I agree with that.
More restrictions.
Yeah.
And you might think too, if you do something with 3 or 4 acres, that it's a maximum number of chickens on those.
Mm-hmm.
So up to so many chickens with this size lot, and then up to so many chickens requiring this size lot, because see, if you say something like 5 acres, you can have chickens. Some guy will ever come in and want to start a poultry farm or something,
Yeah.
and they give you 500 there.
Yeah, we do have some regulations as to big operations like that as well. But I'll make sure to bring those issues up. And as far as the meeting on the 15th, I do have a jury trial that day. Sometimes with the jury, you don't know when they're going to come back with a verdict. It's my intention to be there at the Christiansburg Middle School meeting, but there is that chance that I won't be able to attend, but I've got it on my schedule.
Okay. Should we be making a resolution to send this chicken issue to the planning department? if that's our desire.
Yes, I think we need to, I don't know if there's resolution, but
No, we
just,
just
I
have
think there was,
consensus,
I think they were looking for a consensus. Is this something that?
Can we call it?
Do we have consensus to,
I think they look, while they're looking, they might as well look at all animals, all farm animals, and put a resolution, something together for all of them.
Why don't we just take one animal at a time? Because I think when you look at pigs, you're talking about a totally different creature.
we're talking about R1, we're not talking about A1.
Goats that bite you.
And what about exotic
What do you do
animals?
if chickens start biting?
Do I,
Exotic?
Yeah, I've had chickens attack me.
I've had it.
Yeah,
Chicken and dumplings.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what you had
what happens when
afterwards.
chickens bite you, the chicken and dumplings.
But, you know, if you're going to talk about them, they need to go ahead and address guineas. They need to address peacocks. They need to address all animals and decide what can be had and by everybody.
Maybe just a fowl or something. With, I think you can get the planning commission could be bogged down with too much and not accomplish anything. At least if you're
That's what they
looking
did
at,
on my pig.
yeah. But if they're looking at chickens, maybe they can accomplish something. But if you start throwing, pigs in, next thing you know, you want to throw in reptiles and monkeys and so forth.
Exotic animals.
Yeah.
Now, we had lions in A1 once.
Yeah.
So are we starting with the chickens, or is that what we're doing?
I don't know if they're going to vote for me, they need to start from all of them.
Chickens for me.
Chicken.
Well,
Chickens for me, I
We can
think.
start with chickens and then come back to Gary's idea about the.
Yeah.
We can do pigs next.
All right, so I'm going back to the planning commission saying, address the chicken issue.
All right. Okay.
The poultry concern.
Poultry issue. Yeah. All right, I have, one announcement to make, and I don't want to be bragging about something, but I had a wonderful birthday. I turned 65 years old last Thursday, so I'm almost as old as he is. And on my birthday, I was blessed with a trip to Richmond, where I made a presentation to the Ag and Environmental Committee of the Virginia Association of Counties on industrial hemp. And I got a 12-0 resolution passed in supporting that. Now, the next step is the Resolutions Committee, which I happen to be on, and which two of the members of the Ag Committee are on. So we will be voting to try to move that to the November meeting in Richmond, or at the Homestead, and hopefully we can get it as a legislative priority through VACO. So, but it was a great discussion, and I was really excited. I have two counties that would like me to come there and speak to their whole board so they can pass individual resolutions, Albemarle and Buckingham County. And it was really exciting. Then when I was done with that, I had to rush back to Reiner, and we had dinner at the winery over on Childress Road. And there I met a young lady who is the vice president of the Association of Farmers, some kind of, I don't have her exact title. She didn't give me her business card. But she was interested in the product. The Wine Association is interested in it because it would make a good buffer for their grapes. It will prevent disease, a good undergrowth product for them, and give them something else to put on the market. So
Put so much stuff in the wine, that'd be right.
Yeah. But it was a good trip, and I had to share it with you all tonight. So, and everything else, the meeting at Meadow Creek was excellent. We got a good write-up in the paper. Where did my friend Marty go? And in the Burbs on Sunday.
They did a great job.
So,
Good article about our tourism director, too.
and good article about our tourism director.
One quick thing, I think Supervisor Tuck has a birthday on September the 30th, but I don't think he'll be 65. You know, so,
Well, see, I'm legal now. I'm
yeah, legal for what? But September 30th.
Medicare.
45.
I don't know, that bike the other day probably got him added 2 or 3 years.
And then I can say, you know, happy early birthday to you and happy belated birthday to
All I've got to say is until I started working with you people, I didn't need glasses. So,
Just wait till you need a new hip.
Don't feel bad. Don't feel bad. They hospitalized me with a bleeding ulcer at one time.
We got 17 years for that.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Yeah.